Welcome back, everybody. I'm your host, Chris Noggle, and I'm excited about today's guest. We got Daniel Mangena with us. And, here's the thing about today's guest. I know a lot about this man. I know a lot about what this man does to literally solve some big problems for the people he works with. And we're going to talk about Dan's company, Dream with Dan. Dan focuses on creating more abundance. We're going to keep it super simple, right? Like fifth grade level, you all want more abundance in your life. Dan is the man that makes that happen. So we're going to get into Dan's story and everything else. We're going to have a ton of fun on today's episode. But before we do that, I got to talk about all of you and your journey to becoming a rebel banker. On your journey to becoming a rebel banker, all of you are seeking knowledge, you're finding knowledge, you're looking at a lot of different things like this podcast. But the one thing I got to be very clear about is whoever told you that knowledge is power lied to you. Knowledge is not power. It's the application of that knowledge that's power. So today in this episode, as you gather these golden nuggets, I need you to find one, maybe two things that you are going to take action on. Otherwise, this is just going to be a good hour of your time, but probably you're not going to get as much out of it as you can. And I want to challenge you. I always, I remember back a while ago when I first went somewhere, I had to be motivated to take action on something. So I'm going to motivate you a little. You guys all like free things. Well, how about I give you something for free to get you to take action? I'm going to give you our brand new book. Okay, this is a booklet I just wrote. It's called Drifting Away from Traditional Car Buying, How to Keep Both Your Car and Your Finances in the Fast Lane. In other words, the booklet teaches you how to get all the money back for all the cars you will ever buy, drive, and own by changing one thing. You interested? Great. How about if I give it to you for free and all you need to do is take action on this? Go to chrisnoggle.com. You don't even have to swipe. As soon as the website pops up, you will see the wealth webinar. Sign up for the wealth webinar and we will send you the brand new booklet. The wealth webinar is free every Wednesday at 1 o'clock. We do a free training. So whether you show up to the training or not, grab a copy of that free booklet and get all the money back for all the cars you ever buy, drive, and own. All right, Dan, Dream with Dan. Let's talk a little bit about what is Dream with Dan. Tell everybody what you do and what life is like with Dreaming with Dan today.
Well, let's talk about this dreaming for a sec, Chris. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. Obviously, we both met through Greg Reed at Secret Knock. I've been following your work and you've done some great work for our community. So thank you for all that you're doing. Much to the point of what you just said, nam ipsa scientia potestas est. Knowledge itself is power. Is it really? No, like you said, the application. Dreams, wonderful things, but what use are they only existing in the dream state? Goals, intentions, ideas, hopes, aspirations, prayers, great, but what use are they if they only remain as thought forms? At the end of the day, your vision board is useless if every vision stays on the board and doesn't make it out into your reality. Dream with your eyes open, my catchphrase, is about dreaming big, having big goals, having big ideas, having big aspirations, but not in a dream state, in a waking state. That means I'm moving through time and space. I'm taking action. I'm making changes. I'm getting support. I'm making things happen in order to allow that dream to become a part of my reality. That's what it's all about.
Love it. So Dan, I'm going to go one step further. Just yesterday, I had an awesome guest on the podcast, Rudy Rudiger. You may have seen the movie. It was a big motion picture movie all about his life called Rudy. It was the football movie, the Notre Dame. So Rudy, talks a lot about dreaming because he was a big dreamer himself. I mean, didn't fit the ideal profile of a football player, but he got his shot because he dreamed. But everybody in his life always said dreamers are not doers. So how do we take somebody that's a dreamer? I am absolutely a visionary. My whole life and everything has been, created through dreams that I've had, but I was a doer. So if most dreamers are not doers, how do we find the dreamers or convert the dreamers into dreamers that actually do?
Well, I think it's a dash of reality, which
That's
is that
a good way.
At the end of the day, I mean, a big part of my work is exploring and examining the different levels of experience that we have as humans. A great meditation, a great prayer, a great yoga session, you feel great. It does something. It's a part of it. Having a clear vision, reading books, learning, knowledge, a part of it. But action is also a part of it too. It's recognizing that all three of these aspects all come together to create everything that we experience. A thought makes its way through these different levels of density, as you will, on its way to actually becoming a part of our life. So anyone who's just dreaming, I like to use, good old fashioned analogies. You can close your eyes. You can imagine yourself having $1 million. You can spend it, and that's great. You might feel good, have a clear vision, but sitting on your butt watching Cheetos all day, eating Cheetos, watching Netflix all day isn't going to actually translate it. Someone says, well, I'm going to win the lottery. Even to win the lottery, you still need to move through time and space to go and buy your lottery ticket. Even if it's just to open up your computer. To have a computer, you need to have had enough money to actually buy a computer, or move through time and space to go to a library or an internet cafe to go and use a computer. And there's still an exchange of energy, and it wasn't free. You're receiving through lottery winnings the accumulated financial energy of everyone else that bought a ticket that didn't win. There's still movement and play in time and space, even for something as lucky or non-actiony as winning the lottery. There is nothing in physical reality that doesn't come to us from or through other people and involves some kind of movement through time and space, even if it's not necessarily yours the whole way.
Yeah, and I've worked a lot with your mentees and your students, and the one thing is they're all getting massive results. So you're obviously doing something right of taking them and allowing them to see their vision, their dream, but also working them through this time and space journey to actually making those dreams become reality. And one thing, I'm going to go way back to there's one certain in time. There's a lot of things that change. World changes, countries change, politics change, but there's one certain, all the way back to the time of Jesus Christ, all the way through now, there's been one thing that's been talked about that has never changed at all. And it hasn't changed because it is a universal law. And that universal law is what we're talking about. It is dreaming, and Napoleon Hill said it, if you dream it, you believe it, you can achieve it. But, this whole idea of taking a dream, a vision, maybe the dream's having $1 million. Maybe it's solving a world problem, like, going out there and getting all the plastic out of the ocean, or something, whatever their dream is. There's a lot of steps that have to happen before that dream becomes reality. But I think too many people in their lives, if this is a universal law like gravity, we know that it has to happen. There's nothing that you can't bend a law, okay? Because, hey, I don't know. If you guys think you can bend laws, listening, go to the top of a building and just jump off and let me know if you could bend that law called gravity. You won't be able to let me know, but I'll see it on the news. You can't bend it. So if this is a universal law and it can't be changed, then how do we make this law work for us? Well, it starts with first dreaming of something concrete. But it then has to go into the next phase of continuously, consistently, and persistently focusing on that dream. Now, how I did it is I was always a big drawer, right? I like to draw everything. So I would draw pictures of this dream, whether it was a skateboard, a snowboard, a dirt bike. I mean, when I was a kid, they were simple dreams. Today, they're much bigger. But I would draw them and I would envision. This is the art of dreaming. I would envision them so deeply. Through school, I'd be drawing them on my notebooks. And then at night, I would physically dream of me doing these things. And I'm going to pick on one, which was surfing. So I live in Buffalo, New York. It's not the epicenter for surfing, but they can surf on the lakes. But at the time, I didn't know that. I wanted nothing more in my life than to learn how to surf. And I focused on it so intently. I watched every surf video there was. I constantly drew pictures of surf and, just different people surfing. And then eventually what started happening, I literally would have dreams of surfing. Now, here's the funny thing, and I don't understand the mind, and I'm not an expert in this, but when this happened, when I dreamt that and I woke up, I physically didn't know the difference of whether or not that really happened or if it was a dream. I mean, the only thing I knew is I wasn't soaking wet, so I knew I wasn't in the water, but my mind didn't know the difference. So how many of you listening to this, and Dan, I want you to really touch on this, how many of you have had something like that happen where you're so deeply focused on something, you think about it nonstop, then all of a sudden you start having dreams about it? The next step, folks, is just keep thinking about it, keep focusing on it, and eventually it will happen. I can't tell you how long. It could be years, it could be decades, depending on how big that dream is. But too many people drop that dream. Too many people think, this is never going to happen because they're not patient, or more importantly, the world or the people that they surround themselves with try to get you to conform to their ideologies. which crushes your dream. And that is the saddest thing. And statistically, if you took 100 people and you really looked at that, only 5 of those 100 will actually go on to be successful in whatever they are focused on, or whatever their dreams are. The other 95% don't. So how can it be such a high percentage? And it's easy. 95% of those people have gotten kicked and beaten down in their lives, and they have decided to conform to what everybody else told them their life should look like because of where they've gotten and what they haven't been able to achieve. That's what stops people from getting to their end goals, I think. So I unpacked a lot there, Dan, and you're the expert in this. So please, let me know your thoughts on some of that.
I don't know if I'm an expert so much as I've been through enough pain to know which bits of it work and which bits were. But I mean, the way that we break it down in the work that we do with people is we've got a teaching that I share called the flow funnel, right? And the flow funnel looked at these different levels of density that I spoke about before, but it also has a preceding element, which is the input. Now, we're operating from the unconscious as much as 97% of the time is what the scientists say. So as much as 97% of the time, our brain is purely unconscious. The unconscious mind operates at 10,000 to 10 million times the speed of the conscious mind, depending on which section of the brain stem that you're in. I think it's the mammalian, the reptilian element, like the really root brain is like 10 million times the speed of the conscious mind. That's the impulse, the reactive mode, the fight or flight is very, very fast. So what's happening is we've got this aspect of ourself that's most of the time dropping in those inputs, those directions about what we're moving towards. So those people that have been beaten down, they've got it, beaten into their unconscious, so their fight or flight kicks in, so they don't take a chance. They don't even have the opportunity to step up and consciously do something about that, because the unconscious quickly says, no, we're not doing that. No, this is who we are. This is, this is how much we're allowed to earn. This is the kind of relationship we're allowed to have. This is the standard of our health. That drops in and we start to feel it. Just like you did with that dream, we start to feel it in our body. Feelings are the first point of contact with vibration. Vibration is the frequency of vibration is what everything's made up of, and everything's energy. But the first point of contact that we have with that is feelings. So we start to feel it in our body. Those feelings then start to become embodied and become emotions. Emotions then start to change the chemistry in our brain and body. The chemistry in our brain and body changes the way we think, our thinking processes. That starts to change our unconscious habits and behaviors. And then we have this thought from the unconscious of, I'm not worthy, I can only have this, I can only have that trickles down and then becomes unconscious habits and behaviors that we're operating on most of the time that become the life that we're living. When someone does what you did, they impress an imprint on their mind, a new vision, a new idea. They change their inputs to support that. So what they're watching, what they're listening to, the conversations that they're having, the books that they're reading, the podcasts that they listen to, new ideas start getting dropped in those inputs. What also happens is existing inputs get challenged. So for example, someone now can't sit with certainty that it's not possible to have a dream about surfing because you've shared with them your experience of them having a dream about surfing. It doesn't mean that they're definitely going to be able to do the same, but it means that now they don't have the basis on which to lie to themselves and say it's not possible. If they then build on that and start reinforcing by perhaps exploring having dreams of surfing, trying and following in your footsteps and getting more evidence, that input's going to become stronger. The feeling's going to become stronger. The mental images and thought forms are going to become stronger. The unconscious habits and behaviors are going to become more pervasive. And then we get the outcome. There's nothing magical about this manifesting stuff. People like to talk about, watch this YouTube video for 30 minutes every day and you're going to get $1 million. No, watch this YouTube video every day for 30 minutes and you're going to have some inputs that will support you getting $1 million. But if your actions and behaviors don't match, if the thoughts that you're having don't match, if you're then introducing for the rest of the day contrary inputs, the rest of the day you're talking about how broke you are, about how hard life is, about how because this person or that person's president, everything's going to go wrong, about how the pandemic's means that you're never going to be able to get anywhere, then that 30 minutes doesn't mean anything. So it's about consistently reinforcing that vision through our inputs, supporting that by acknowledging and being aware of the feelings that are supporting that, nurturing and encouraging thoughts and thought forms that align with that, and then supporting those unconscious actions with further conscious actions that reinforce a positive loop and lead to new outcomes. That's what it is. It's not magic.
Wow. I really like that. That's, but there was, it takes a lot of work, like the whole thing about watch this YouTube video, the imprints, and then going out there and doing it. And I got thinking about it as you're talking about that, as much of a dreamer as I am, I've also hit those low points in my life where my dreams were, in my mind, my dreams were shattered. And then I started getting into that negative space saying, I can't do this. Why am I doing this? Why do I suffer, like this? Why am I, why? And then the why turns into, I'm going to blame. So I went through this whole part of my life twice. Actually, I can go back twice and really fine tune or not fine tune, but really point out these negative moments where literally I spent so much time and energy blaming other things and other people for what was going on in my life. None will ever be more than the 2014 thing, because that's when I had lost it all for the second time. And I remember I was blaming my old business partners who, yes, they did screw me, but it doesn't matter. I was blaming them. I was blaming the Great Recession. I was blaming every single thing for why I was in the terrible place that I was. But I never actually, at that point in time in my life, started saying, you know what, all these things happened. They all are terrible. Maybe each one of these little things are a factor of it, but each one of these should be a lesson for me to learn from and to realize that like the problem is my problem and it's no one else's problem. Nobody else cares about it. So I'm going to have to deal with that problem. And then start getting in that mindset of positive thinking. And positive thinking can really be tiny little steps on a daily basis. Like think of one good thing in the day. I don't care if it's, the coffee you had this morning. Oh, that was so good. Focus on that all day long. Man, that coffee this morning was so unbelievably good. I gotta really focus on that positive. Whatever little positive you have in the day, hang on to that thing. That is your greatest gift of the day, is that positive thing to happen. A lot of negative things happen every single day. You get stressed. Every time you get stressed, you just got to go back to that positive. That's how I do it. Listen, I have terrible days. My staff here hears me, get all frustrated, but then what I'll do is I'll realize I'm doing it. Like you have that aha moment. Once you get to that point where you realize like you're doing it. Oh, here I'm doing it again. Andrew, I'm doing it again, aren't I? Yes, you're doing it. Okay. Then you find that positive, and as soon as you start focusing on that positive, you're like, oh, wow, that really wasn't so bad. And you forget all about it. But at that moment, when you're in that negative space, it's the greatest, worst possible thing that could ever happen. And you just can't get your head out of it until you just switch the focus and become aware. And I think that's, God, there's so much to this. And it's just, sometimes when people hear this stuff, they're like, oh, that again, because they've heard it so many times. But the reason you've heard it so many times is because it's the basis of what every successful person has gone through. And most people, just like yourself, we've failed. We've been at the bottom, so we've realized this. Yeah. So for people going through life, and, we've just come out of some really hard times. COVID wasn't easy for a lot of people. For other people, it helped them, but it was a hard time. How do people start focusing on the right things? How do people start getting themselves in that right mindset and getting themselves into the right dream space where they can really take the next steps? Is there a process that you teach that gets them to kind of do this? Because if you just think too big, I'm going to go to Mars. Let's take some baby steps. How does this whole thing work?
There's a couple of things overlay. First and foremost, you just said the magic words, baby steps, right? So there's a concept that we teach called MicroShifting, and it's one of the more popular of the ideas that I share with people. MicroShifting combines baby steps with a couple of other ideas. I define a microshift as a consistent series of baby steps made in the direction of a consciously chosen outcome. A consistent series of baby steps made in the direction of a consciously chosen outcome. So Mars, okay. Do you even have a spaceship? What's a step before that needs to happen? So we first, by breaking down the macro within the overall, the bigger steps, then we look at those bigger steps. What do I need to do to get that small step? Maybe I need to make some phone calls. I need to do some research. I need to do some fundraising. I need to get my pilot's license, whatever. Every single one of those steps within it then has a series of steps. So there's a sequential series of steps that leads to any outcome. Nothing goes from point A and transmutes immediately into point B. There is a series of steps. If you don't understand those steps, you're not going to be able to imagine and visualize those steps anyway. And like Tony Robbins says, unless you can see it, it's not going to show up. You need to be able to vision it with clarity and certainty in your mind first. So for anyone that's got a big vision, a big dream, and they don't even know what their steps are, you already know what your next step is. Identify what those steps are. Then what you're going to do is break those bigger steps into smaller steps. And every single one of those steps is going to be a smaller step still. What some people are going to find when they look at the amount of work that needs to be done, that they don't really want to do it anyway. And then you may find that you actually end up going to do something else, or that this dream wasn't even yours anyway. The amount of times, Chris, that I've seen this. People go to create a big goal. People that come into my Micro to Millions program, for example, I'm going to be a millionaire. They get into it and they realize I don't even need to be a millionaire. A couple of 100,000 properly invested actually gives me the quality of life that I want. Why waste time chasing after something that's not even your goal? Some people come in, they realize, hang on, I need more than $1 million because I want to do this, and this. Okay, but we've got a roadmap. And that's what we do with Micro to Millions. It's exactly the same thing around wealth. You take a penny and double it 28 times, you've got 1.6 million. Take $100, which is where we start with the program, 14 steps, 1.6 million. 14 steps. I've now got 14 manageable baby steps that I can make all the way up to $1 million or more. When we have clarity, we can create an accurate plan. We can also ascertain if we even want to go through the steps and do this in the first place. But most importantly, unless we have clarity, unless we have that clear vision, we're not going anywhere anyway. And to your point about awareness, I'm going to give the listeners a hack. And this one hack, I believe, will change the game for them. Anytime that they get down and catch themselves down, they get anxious, they get fearful, they get doubtful, ask yourself this question: am I certain that this is what's going to happen? When you get into anxiety about a particular thing that may or may not happen, ask yourself, can I be certain that thing is going to happen? Because if you try and resist it, if you try and push it away, if you try and fight it, you're actually just going to give it more life and feed it, and it's going to get stronger. If you try and pretend it's not there, then it's going to fester in the background. If you try and override it by bullying it, you're just going to feed it. But if you challenge it with a simple question, can I be certain that this is true? The mind isn't your enemy, it's your friend. It's also not BS, full of BS. It tells the truth. So you're going to find that, oh no, I can't be certain that it's true. Now that you can't be certain that it's true, an energy gets pulled out of it because the energy is invested in the mind believing that it's definitely going to happen. But when you pull that energy out by challenging it through that simple question, it starts to dissipate. From there, you can start to do what you do. Oh, hang on a minute. What am I even doing? I've got this to be grateful for. I've got that to be grateful for. This is going right. That's going well. That might not happen. And actually, when I think about it, even if it does happen, I've got the resources to deal with it. Or I can go and ask that person. I can call Chris. I can call Steve. I can call one of the team. I can do this. I can do that. And they can get the resources so that it's not such a bad thing anyway.
You know, it's so funny. You know, I've been to so many masterminds and been around just some of the most amazing people. And not long ago, I was in Salt Lake City and I was at a mastermind, and a Navy SEAL was there talking, and he was talking very much about what you just did. He focused heavily on, you know, the mind and, you know, the subconscious versus the conscious. But he got into the granular details of what you just mentioned about that fear. And he said something very similar, like, am I certain this is going to happen? You know, you get scared of something, and he broke it down to like why this happens. I guess Navy SEALs are taught this, and it comes back to when, you know, let's go back to our early days of being, you know, cavemen. You know, when we came out of the cave to go hunt, which is what we had to do, gather and hunt, you know, we were always worried that there was a saber-toothed tiger going to eat us, you know. So like, if you came out and you saw the saber-tooth, that was the fear, and you ran back in. And every time you came out, your brain is, I don't know if that would be subconsciously programmed to say, there's a saber-tooth tiger going to eat me. So then you got to say, am I certain that's going to happen? So like, I know that's like where it comes from, but like still today, like I love that, because when we get scared of things and we start like thinking all these different negative thoughts in our mind, if we do just challenge the mind and just say, am I certain that's going to happen? Am I certain there's going to be a saber-tooth tiger outside that door that's going to eat me? Now, I mean, there's a chance that maybe that could happen, but like, hey, it's gonna kind of really take it down. And I love the way that you said it, because it was so similar to this Navy SEAL. I mean, think of what a Navy SEAL has to go through. Yeah. Like they're in situations like I could never fathom. And exactly. They're trained to understand how their mind perceives fear and danger. And they're trained to literally go after that fear and danger, because that's just how they've been conditioned. And because of their training and all the things that they prepared for, usually they do make it through that dangerous situation because of training and preparation. And that's kind of what you're talking about, you know, but you got to get over that first fear. Otherwise you never get any further. And I love that. I love that. So, with all this, how did you, I got to almost we got to go back a little bit in time. Like, how did all this happen for you? How did you get to the point where you're teaching people all the things that you do to take them from where they're at today to wherever their goals are? We'll call it millions or millionaire or anything like that.
So, much like you, I had a couple of knocks in my life. Much like you, I started my entrepreneurial journey young. I made my first million when I was 19 and a half years old. I lost it a few months into being 20. I think I've been 20 for 3 months when everything was gone. I dusted myself off. I hadn't been tested by life yet. So I didn't have anything to say, oh, this is the end. I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'll just go and do it again. Took me a lot longer the next time, a couple of years before we built up again. The next time, people stole everything. So I lost everything a second time. Now, here's the thing. I was into this kind of content from about 15 or 16 years old. I was listening to Napoleon Hill tapes. And
at 15 years old?
15, 16 years old, I was doing all this. I registered my first company when I was 16 years old. I incorporated my first company.
What was that company?
That one was the computers that I was doing.
Yeah.
So I taught myself to make computers when I was 13 years old. So I was... there's a newspaper in the UK called The Loot, L-O-O-T, and you can place free ads. If it's like, so what I would do is I'd make up a generic computer description. I'd post the ad for free, but then as many people would order, I'd be able to make the pieces. Then I found a company called Novatech Computers in Southampton. Amazing. They had unbranded computers and laptops. And get this, you could get them to send the invoice one place and the computer somewhere else.
No way. So they were white labeling what back then? Exactly.
So I set up, I think it was Dantec or Lintec Computers. I can't remember the name of the company. But what I was doing was I found that I could get the specifications that they had. I'd put them in the loop. People would call in the order. I'd get them to pay the money into my account. I would immediately pay the money to Novatech. Novatech shipped them the computer and I get mine. I was making 100, 150 pounds per computer as a 15-year-old. Then I had my first big deal. This is why I needed the company. There was a business that they put an order with me for 5 laptops and 5 printers. I made £5,000, £5,000 on that. I bought myself some new Reebok Classic shoes, some Patrick Cox shoes. I got myself a fancy new bag. But yeah, that was my first big deal. So I got into this stuff really young. I was reading books. I was studying tapes and doing courses. I started to read, I think I read Think and Grow Rich when I was 17. I think I read Think and Grow Rich when I was 17 years old. Then I came across a book by a guy called Stuart Goldsmith, who ended up being my first mentor. Stuart Goldsmith, he wrote a book called The Midas Method that taught all about success and really broke down mindset into a much simpler model. He said that success is 4 parts. Number 1, knowing what you want. Number 2, believing that you can do it. Number 3, believing that you're worthy of it. And number 4, going out and bloody getting it. And if you do that, you're never going to fail to be successful. And I love that book. And I actually wrote him a letter. I said, hi, I'm Dan. I think I was like 18 at the time. I'm 18 years old. I really love your work. I was wondering if I could write you letters. And he wrote me back. And so I had my first pen pal, like actually stamp and envelope and all the things. This is before email became all the rage. And what ended up happening is he did an experiment. He started the experiment in 2002. But I found out about the experiment in 2003, 2004, which is he had the double your way to $1 million experiment. And he said, I want you to find a penny on the floor and without adding another penny other than what you find or create with the money that you have, double your way to $1 million. And he gave the steps, 1 penny to 2 penny, 2 to 4, 4 to 8, all the way up. And a couple of times you round it down, but you end up at 1.6 million 28 times. And I followed the process and I was one of the people that actually did it. I made it all the way past the $1 million. Of course, I lost it. But then I went and applied again. The next time I didn't actually use this model, I built up a consulting business and I got some nice contracts and stuff like that. And I built up the fortune that way. But then 2016, I looked back and I was like, hang on a minute. I really want to do the work that I'm doing now. It's when I was kind of in the decision time about leaving my business to do what I do now. I was like, well, if I get a big chunk of money, my business was doing multi-7 figures, but we had partners. So my take home was probably really high 6 figures, but the business was multi-7. I was like, well, I want to put aside some money. So I said, oh, hang on a minute. I remember I've got the double your way to $1 million method. And And I remember that when I did it the first time, there were all these underground bulletin boards and chat rooms across the internet where we were doing this experiment and people were sharing ideas. I was like, well, I can go in and see what new ideas people are doing these days. And then I found out that one of Stuart's business partners, a guy called Barry Tyler, had set up a thing where he said, rather than starting from a penny, start from 100 and then it's only 14 steps. And he had a program where he was mentoring people through these 14 steps. And I took off on this program and I started going on it. And after 6 months, I was stuck at like 12 grand. I was like, what the hell's going on? I've done this before. I've made money before. My other businesses are fine. Why is this not growing? And that's when I understood something. The Dan Mangena that was doing this in 2016 was very different to the Dan Mangena who'd done it in 2007 when I got up to 120 grand, but I needed the money, so I didn't finish, or who'd done it in 2003, 2004. I was a different person. Now I was more into collaborative energy, more into community. And this really helped me to understand that who we are also impacts the way that we're able to do things, right? Back then I was a lone wolf. I hadn't been diagnosed with the Asperger's, so I didn't really understand how to connect with people and how to build community, but now I was really community led. So that was the beginning of what became Micro to Millions, a community that I started where all of us are now doing the same journey. But then when I took off, then all of a sudden things started going on, things started grooving, things started moving. Suffice to say that now, having overlaid also other things I've learned, such as this whole stuff about the emotional content, which Stuart and Barry didn't really cover. They didn't cover about the emotion. They didn't cover stuff like universal law, how energy flows into it. And whilst I gave a lot of strategy and a lot of mindset, it was kind of more lack mindset than abundance, like go and get it, go and kill, go and destroy, versus, hey, we can co-create, we can make things work, we're coming from abundance. And so I spent some time reframing all of those pieces and overlaying it into it and bringing in work like there's a woman called Lynn McTaggart. She wrote a book called The Power of 8 that showed that when 8 people hold an intention, magic happens. So again, bringing in that community spirit. And so now, having had the opportunity to test everything that I teach, having had the opportunity to continue my learning and having had the opportunity to see that this stuff actually works in people's lives, now I'm more fervent, I'm more confident, more certain, more sure and more committed to bringing these concepts into people's lives. Nobody has to be broke. Nobody has to be in pain. Nobody has to be in struggle. Nobody has to be in anxiety. If you want to do that, fine. But if you want to do it a different way, there are ways to do it. This is one. It may not be the way for you. This is one way, but we're finding that it works, as you've seen with some of the guys from our community that you've got to speak to.
I think that's fascinating. I've never heard that story, Dan. So I'm really glad we went there because that's, listen, like I started my first company at 16, but I didn't become a millionaire early on. Actually, I have made very little money in those first companies because my goal for those companies was not to make a lot of money. My goal was I wanted to be a pro snowboarder.
Exactly.
You don't need to make a lot of money to be a pro snowboarder. You just need to follow the journey and just live the life. And that's all I did. So money to me was literally from a very early age, was just always a tool. It was like the best way to see it. Yeah, it was just the shovel in the garage. And then that changed when I became a financial advisor. Then money became something that it shouldn't have ever became, but it became this token, this thing that I put on the wall like a plaque, and I had to show it off. And that's when ego came in, and I started making, 6 figures and, mid-level 6 figures being an advisor. And I thought, oh, big advisor making all this money. And that I'm going to tell you right now, like, listen, most people will have this journey. They'll go from not having much, and it's very easy when you don't have much to kind of keep climbing, but then you hit a certain level, because they call that the arrival syndrome, and you hit it, and all of a sudden it's gonna be different for everybody, but ego is going to come in. You're going to start getting nicer things. You're going to think you're, at a higher status. Yeah, whatever you want to call it. I mean, I remember this, and I'm embarrassed of it, but it's a learning lesson of my life. I remember these days, the fancy suits, the BMWs, like, it's just always up, show up the guy, in the office. Oh, you're the big guy. And I remember as soon as that started happening and ego came in, that's when things fell apart. It's when things started, becoming difficult in my life. It's when things started really posing problems in my life. It's when I started losing sight on what I was actually working toward. Like, I was working to make more money, but like, what was money? Before in my life, money was a tool to get me to the resort to snowboard, or the tool to do the thing I needed. Now, all of a sudden, money was just this plaque on the wall that I always had to kind of one up that plaque. And I will tell you, that's when my life derailed. It's when I lost purpose. I had no idea why I was doing what I was doing. You're making all this money, and I didn't know why I was doing it all. And then I crashed and burned, and then I got back and I built it back up, but I still had that ego there. And now it was in real estate. It wasn't, the financial world, it was real estate. And then all of a sudden I lost it all. And sometimes we have to ride these crazy roller coasters because we forget why we do the things that we do. We forget that why, or that why becomes convoluted into something that really isn't our why, but we think it is. And listen, like, I think for me, what I thought was my why during those years was thought of because of other people telling me that was my why. Other people in the office, maybe the superior in the office. Oh, you got to do this. Oh, yeah, this is a great car. Oh, look at my house. Oh, and then their why became my why, which wasn't really my why. I mean, going in circles here, but like that was a very complicated, very difficult period of time in my life. And the funniest thing is I had lots of money during that period of time. So when people are striving for a goal and that goal is always money, if we all listen, we all are focused to make more money for one reason or the other. But I think we need to sometimes understand what money actually is. And I teach this a lot. Money's a means of exchange, but we also need to understand why we do what we do. And I think the most important thing, and this is, I think, why I've had such success lately, was back Greg Reed, of all people, at his house during that time when I was lost, 2014. I just lost it all, and I was lost at what I was doing. And I went to Greg. I went to an event at his house. He did a mastermind. It cost me $5,000. I did not have $5,000. I remember swiping my Visa to go to that event and thinking, oh my God, this is a huge mistake. So I got there with already a negative mindset, thinking, how am I ever going to pay this back? And then I started thinking, okay, well, while I'm there, maybe I can meet some of the people and sell them something that will make it so that I can pay this $5,000. All the wrong things. And I went to Greg. I was surrounded by all these greats, the founder of UGG Boots, the founder of Make-A-Wish, all the greats. You're in this environment. I'm just this little peon, and I'm like quiet because I don't even know what to say. People are saying, oh, so what do you do? I'm a financial advisor. Oh, I also do it. I'm a real estate investor. Oh, I'm also doing this. I didn't even know what I did. And, then all of a sudden they're like, oh, okay. And they'd find somebody else to go talk to. But I'm going along with this, but I went to Greg and I said, Greg, I need the best advice you can give me. And he knew my situation a little bit, puts his hand on my shoulder, leans into me, and he says, I'm going to give you the best advice. Here it is. Give your best stuff away for free. And I sat there and I'm thinking, you son of a bitch. I'm like, I just spent $5,000 to come to your house and I asked you such an important question and that's your answer to me? Like, you're this big mentor, this big like author, like Napoleon Hill, like, guy, like, that's what you tell me? But now, like, unwinding that many years, later, that was the best advice he could have ever given me. Because once I started understanding what he meant, and I started doing that, giving my best stuff away, giving everything away in the effort to solve somebody else's problem, all my problems started solving themselves. And Dan, have you ever read the book, The One Thing?
No, but it sounds like
put that on the list. It's Gary Keller's book. But in the very last chapter of that book, he talks about another book he read that was profound, and he speaks about it. But it was this father who never really had spent enough time with his son, but loved his son. And his son came to him and said, Dad, can we spend a whole day together with no work, with nothing? And his father said, absolutely, son. I'm so excited. So he sets the day. They're really excited. They get up early. The father had a routine every morning, drinking his coffee, reading his paper. But his son got up way early that morning, and he wasn't done reading the paper. So his son, all right, Dad, let's play. The father had to think quick because he wanted to finish this article he was reading in the paper. And he's like, oh, how do I do this? So he tears out a picture that was in this newspaper of the world, right? It's just a picture of the world. And he rips it up into a whole bunch of pieces. He says, all right, son, we're going to play this game. We're going to put this puzzle together. And he mixes it all up on the table. Now, this puzzle would be very hard to put together because it was just torn, a bunch of things. You couldn't really find a starting place. And the son was struggling with it. The father's reading his paper. And then all of a sudden the son says, Dad, I'm done. Like, check it out. I'm finished with this. And the father thinks that's impossible. There's no way he finished that already. And he puts the paper down, and there it was. Like, the world was put together. All the pieces of paper were put together. And the father says, son, this is fantastic. Like, how did you do it? And the son said, Dad, it was real. It was almost impossible. I almost gave up. I couldn't get it. And then all of a sudden a piece falls on the ground. And I went to pick it up. And when I looked up, and it was a glass table, and I looked up and I saw on the other side of all these pieces was the picture of a man. And then I figured out all I needed to do was put the man together and the world took shape. Dude, that is profound. Put the man together
and the
world takes shape. How simple is that to sum up all of our journeys, right? If you put the man together, the world that the man is seeking takes shape. And that story, I will tell that story thousands of times to the day I'm dead. And it's not my story. It's in another book. But see, that's the thing. We pick up little golden nuggets through our lives. In the most random places. Greg Reed putting his hand on my shoulder and telling me that, which pissed me off. Reading this book, one thing. Listening to you talk about this stuff. Like, all these things are just a piece of our journey. The question is what do we actually take and use and apply? By me telling that story, it allowed me to apply that one little piece of knowledge, which formulates that picture, that imprint in my mind of putting the man together. The man is me, is you, is everybody listening to this. We all need to put the man together, or, and I don't want to be sexist, but the woman, the whatever. The human together. We need to put the person together, and then the world takes shape. Man, it's just like
100%.
Everything you teach is so in line with that. And I just can't believe you read Think and Grow Rich at such a young age.
Yeah.
That should be a mandatory thing in every school, that every kid reads that.
All my nephews and nieces, I've been very, very diligent in teaching them critical thinking from young. Even when they're little, when they ask me questions, I ask them questions back. So they learn to answer questions as well as asking questions, and we dialogue. So I'm teaching them analytical, critical thinking. I get them reading particular books. A friend of mine, David, Delisle was actually creating a book all about, it's like a cartoon, an animated book, all about teaching financial principles to kids. I'm looking forward to supporting him getting that into the world too. And I'm going to connect you with him. I think you guys will really get along.
Absolutely.
But as soon as they get to their teens, all of them, they're getting Think and Grow Rich. They're getting these books. They're getting these books to have them looking at the world differently. The education system, as you know, is training sheep to go and work in the factory. It's still based on the Victorian workforce. That's what it's still doing. Ringing bell, sitting in lines, listening to the teacher, teaching you stuff that you don't even need. It's just training you to take instruction. Who uses trigonometry? They're not teaching you taxes. They're not teaching you about banking. They're not teaching you how to create value. They're teaching you how to take instructions and to be what someone else has told you to be. So I'm going to make sure all of the kids, my kids, they're all going to be learning these things, not to be rebels fighting the system, but to understand how to work the system to their benefit.
That's it.
To contribute and to be a positive member of society.
I think there's a lot of people today, and a lot of people are really frustrated with what's going on, and whether it's US or in the world, period, and they want to fight it. But I think, it's very difficult to fight such a big thing like that, and I think if we just find the way to navigate through it and make that whole world work with what we're trying to do, it's much easier. And, that brings me to a book that I read, and this is what I was looking down at. It's called The Alchemist. You ever read The Alchemist?
Paul Coelho.
Correct. Yes. So this book, they made us read this book in high school. And I remember I don't really know why they made us read this in high school. And I don't know if all schools do this, but I never forgot that book. And I was in middle school, and I've read that book 3 or 4 times, and I've made my wife read that book. And, it's like the power of something so silly like that, like The Alchemist. You're going to make a kid read The Alchemist. Like, it's hard for the kid to even understand, but the kid just doesn't really need to fully understand it. They just need to kind of go and see that journey. But the same thing is true for Think and Grow Rich. They might not fully understand it, but they will never forget the principles of that book. And you're right. They're training sheep, 100% training sheep. And that's what the system's always been designed. But I love the fact of you can't change that, at least not overnight. Most of us, it might take our entire lifetime to change this current system, but we can play within the system and just change the people that want help's lives. And that's, I think, the hard thing is, I don't know if you suffer from this, but I do. What I teach, and all the things that we do, I can help almost everybody. Almost everybody can be helped. I can solve their money problems. But the problem with that ideology, I'm trying to say, of helping everybody is a major flaw for me, because not everybody wants help. They don't think they want help, but when it gets down to the brass tacks, they don't want help. So I've literally had to decide and learn how to say no more than I say yes. Because every time I say no, it allows me to say yes to the right person. But every time I say yes, yeah, I can help you. Yeah, I think I can help you. Yeah, I'm saying no to the person that needs the help and wants the help. So I think a lot of times in life, we want to be yes people because it's just easier to say yes. Oh yeah, I'll do that, or I'll help do that. But if we just say no, sure, it might not feel good saying it, but that allows us to then say yes to the right opportunity, yes to the right person. And that's a very difficult thing to do. And I'm suffering and struggling with it, but I am saying no more than I'm saying yes now. And
it's management of energy.
It's awakening almost, because you say no, you're like, oh God, I should have helped that person. But then something happens right after that. And you're like, oh, now I can say yes to this. And that person really is going to, benefit from this. It's, I don't know. So
yeah, it's management of energy. Definitely. It's management of energy. And also recognizing that everybody's on their own journey. So I'm a certified instructor for a modality called reality transurfing. And the golden rule of transurfing is live life on your terms and allow other people to do the same. There are some people who we are going to be able to help. There's some people who we're going to help come to a place of realizing that they don't want to be helped. The amount of times that I've seen people blow themselves up and, change because they don't really want that thing. They're killing themselves. So actually, a primary step that I love to do with people is helping them to find out what it is they really want. And if what they're going for is what they really want, then if you want to continue the journey, if you want to keep going, we can see where we can do that together. Oftentimes I refer people out to other people, friends of mine that work with other modalities and other ways. But ultimately, when somebody doesn't know what they want, you're not going to be able to help them anyway. They're not going to be able to help themselves. They're just going to end up getting stuck.
It's an important thing to really realize. And, you're not slowing down. So what is your end goal? Like when you think about what you do, it's so powerful, but what are your goals? Like, what are you shooting for?
So I've got a goal that I know I can never achieve, likelihood, right? I want to change the world, and not in an airy-fairy way. I have a firm belief that humanity is a sum total of the humans that comprise it. And that when we reach a tipping point where the number of humans that are positive and abundant versus the ones that are negative and in lack reaches that critical mass, the world will change. The reason why we're in fear and negativity right now is because I think it's Malcolm Gladwell in his book Tipping Point actually speaks about this. So you know what I'm talking about. There are actually quantifiable numbers that we can hit that creates a tidal wave of change. It shifts the energy. I want to be a contributor to that energy changing in the world as a whole. Will I do it in my lifetime? Probably not. But I'll do it one person at a time, one podcast at a time, one article at a time, one book at a time, one call at a time, one course at a time, and empowering those people to be independent, not coming to suck on my tit of knowledge, but to take the information that I've got to apply it and then go out and be a beacon in their community, to go and be a beacon to the people that they serve, to go and be a beacon to their kids. That's what I'm doing. I'm thinking about a legacy of total global transformation.
Yeah, and I think we're really close to that tipping point right now. I really do.
I do too.
You can see it. You just see it out there. There's a lot of sheep out there, man. And there's not enough lions. But I like that, man. This has been an awesome episode. So one final question for you. On your journey of all these things you've done, what has been your biggest internal obstacle that you've had to overcome?
Much like you, the ego, bro. Thinking I was Johnny Big Socks that knows everything.
Thought I was all alone on a little island.
And when I look at how I lost my first fortune, how I lost my second fortune, is because I didn't understand that I don't know everything because I hadn't been tested. I hadn't had those scrapes. And overcoming it was actually understanding the beauty in learning from someone else's experience, the beauty of being guided by other people's wisdom, and then the gift of being able to share my own wisdom that I've gleaned from others with others.
And that's awesome. And that whole ego thing, I always repeat a quote by one of the greats, but it says the biggest problem in America is not what people don't know, The biggest problem is what people think they know. It just ain't so.
That's what I know. You always say that one.
I always say it. Yeah. And then,
yeah,
that's a good one. It's a good one, but that's the truth. Like, I always thought I knew what I didn't know, and until you actually realize, wow, I don't know that. And you become a perpetual student, nothing changes. So Dan, if people want to learn more about Micro to Millions or Dream with Dan, like how do they find you? How do they learn more about your programs and your teachings?
I would say head over to dreamwithdan.com, my website. We've got a free video on there called How to Be a Harmonious Money Magnet. It will start the journey in going a bit deeper into this way of approaching how we look at abundance and how to bring it into our lives with more grace and ease. A book of mine that I would really recommend everybody get. It's not a long one. It's a short book. We've actually made it available for $1 now. You should be able to get it on the website now for $1. That's Money Game. And what Money Game will actually do is start the process of you developing an actual set of evidential experiences that what we're saying actually works. Starting that process of microshifting, the concepts that we teach in that book, it's the first step that we teach everyone in Micro to Millions to get from $0 to $100. Some people go further. People applying this, the current record is $75,000 manifested in 2 days, applying the principles in this book. Yeah.
Wow.
It works. We've got testimonials up the wazoo. People, magic happens with that. If from there they want to continue their journey, then they'll be in our world and they can find out more. But I would say go and grab that free video. Go over and grab Money Game. It's a quick book. There's no fluff. It's not there to tell fanciful stories. It's there to get in and get did with getting you manifesting some money. So that's what I'd suggest.
I love it, man. Money Game. How can anyone forget the name of that book? So folks, for $1, for $1, go get yourself Money Game. Get to that website. We'll put that in the show notes. Tim, this has been awesome. I knew it would be. I just knew it was going to be an awesome episode. And people really need to work with you because those micro steps will change that. And you just said it. So, folks, take action. Like I said earlier, get his book, get into that video, and see if he can help change your life. And I'm almost certain if you want to change your life, Dan can help you do that. So, thanks for joining me, Dan.
Thank you, buddy.
You're welcome. All right, folks, for another episode of the Real Estate Money School, thank you for joining us, and we will see you on the next one. Go out there, take action, change your life. We'll see you next time.